All right, so today we're going to be taking a break from the FZ-09 and going to be working on the Kayo K230. So essentially, I'm going to be adjusting the chain because even though I don't have a lot of hours on this bike, I made a change last time where I flipped the rear shock after getting some recommendation from some other people. And please take a look at or watch that video. And now my chain is completely loose, so I'm going to be adjusting it. I think it's worth doing this video, even though I've done it a lot of times on different bikes that I've owned in the past, but because chances are you started biking or motorcycling with a Kayo K230. So you're wondering, how do I do this? What the type of tools that I need in order to make this happen? So I'm going to be showing you that today. There are two main reasons why you want to adjust your chain. One is the chain is too tight or the chain is too loose. So when the chain is too loose, you're going to have a chain that's like flopping everywhere. So it's not safe. But you know, it can help for the chain to wear out in a way that is not proper, or maybe cause some unnecessary wear on some other components such as sprockets, because it's like constantly flopping and whatnot. The other condition, when the chain is too tight, that means that you're adding a lot of pressure to areas or tension or areas that they don't require that amount of pressure, and it's not actually a good thing. So when the tension is too tight, you're not allowing your suspension to kind of come up and down. The suspension is going to want to come up and down, but what's going to be paying the price of the tension is going to be your transmission, because the chain is connected to your counter sprocket in the front and is going to be pulling on the transmission every time the rear is going to want to come up and down. So you don't want that. So you want the chain loose enough where your suspension can work freely, but you don't have a chain that's like constantly like flopping everywhere. Although not necessary, a lift is not necessary just to adjust your chain, but in this case I'm going to be using a lift just because I've been working so many times, so many years on the floor, that I finally have a lift that I can work out of. So essentially I'm going to be using this, but you don't need it. So imagine this is flat ground. So essentially what you want is just to have a wheel that moves freely so that you can adjust the chain without adding pressure from the ground or carrying the weight of the bike. Finally, this is everything you need in order to make the adjustment. I like to use common tools because that way I can show people that you don't need fancy tools in order to get this done. A 19, number 12, 17, 13, and a torque wrench or an adapter is fine if you have one. Okay, so now with the bike lifted, you can see that we're going to be starting or working, on this side with the adjuster and the axle. And then we're going to be working on this side as well, which has almost the same setup, but we have to, remove this just so we can remove the tension on the axle. And you allow for free movement, of the axle, back or forward, depending on exactly what you need to accomplish with your chain. The first thing we're going to be doing is to undo this bolt right here. And I'm going to use the 19, okay, to break it. Ooh, it broke. The other side is not moving, so we're just gonna continue undoing this. Perfect. And I think at this point, I should be in a place where I can move it freely. I don't want to completely undo the bolt. I just want to loosen so that I can allow for that movement, back and forth as we discussed before. It's very important that if you're new to motorcycles or mechanics in general, this knot is actually it's actually keeping this one from moving and this whole assembly from moving. So you just have to undo these two. So we're going to go ahead and take this 112. I'm going to hold with A13 this one, and I'm going to undo this one right here. Okay, and now by me doing this, I'm allowing for this bolt to move freely without having to deal with this one. So this is the one we're going to be using to either push to this side or kind of just to go inwards or forward if we need to have some additional slack. So we're going to repeat the same process on the other side. So it's the same process here. In case you missed it, I'm going to be using a 13 in here, and I'm going to take this 12 and I'm going to undo the 12. Let me put it like this to make sure that you guys can see it. There you go. So by just doing this, it doesn't take a lot of force. you can start separating, creating some separation so that you know that you can move the other ones, you know, freely. The whole process started with us measuring the slack on the chain on this side. So the book for this bike, I think, recommends a 17 to maybe 20 millimeters. So I know 25 millimeters, it's an inch, if I'm not mistaken, like around that. So of course this is way too much. Like I have a lot of like flop on the chain here, and let me tell you something, I'm not going to be getting rid of all the slack, because I really like to you know, use my chain fairly loose, because I want the suspension to move freely, but I recognize, you know, that there's some, you know, adjustment needed, because I'm not supposed to be able to kind of, you know, do this, and this is a lot of, you know, play on the chain that I do not want right now, and this is a brand new chain. So I'm going to go ahead, you're going to be paying attention to these lines. So what you are looking for is to move this block by pushing or tightening this bolt, or actually not tightening, but like undoing this bolt is going to be pushing this plate, and you want this chain to always stay straight in comparison between this side and the other side. So you don't want the wheel, if you were looking at the wheel from the rear, you don't want to be pulling the chain in a way where the wheel is going to be doing this. You want to do the same amount so that you're pulling in a straight manner. So we're going to be doing that by taking a look at the adjusters and ensuring that the blocks are actually in the same place on both sides. Maybe you can use a screwdriver or something, but what I like to do is just to put something that, if I do this, is allowing me to know that I'm pulling on the chain as much as possible, and I'm actually adjusting in a way where I'm not leaving any unwanted slack on the chain. But the most important is just to stretching, you know, the chain as much as possible. So I'm going to be starting, and I'm going to do this one time, kind of quarter of a turn, and I'm just going to be doing another. Requires some patience. So now I come here, I'm just gonna remove this and see the chain. Was that enough? Nah, it's the same. So we just have to go a few more. Okay, so let me hold this one. Okay, so I'm just gonna push now, and I'm going to go by this ear right here. So I'm just gonna go a measurement between this, and that's just gonna tell me, you know, how much I'm going to have to push, so I know that I have the right amount of tension and alignment on the wheel. All right, so I'm going to try to make sense of this as you know, easy as possible. And I'm going to provide a reference for those of you who have a bike before, and for those of you who are, you know, adjusting this bike for the first time and you don't have a lot of experience with, you know, other bikes. So normally this bolt on some other bikes is going to be entering in here and going to be grabbing to either threads that are being threaded, you know, into the swing arm, or material on the swing arm, or maybe a nut on the inside. If that was the case, then you're going to be pushing this out or pushing this back by undoing the bolt. So you're going to be grabbing the bolt, and by grabbing the bolt, you're going to be pushing this plate out. In this particular case on this bike, where this bolt, as you can tell, is not grabbing to anything on the inside, what's keeping the pressure is the nuts on the actual bolt. What you want to do is to find where is the place where how far back your tire is going to go, or how far forward does your tire need to go. And by doing that, you're going to be measuring from the end of the plate to the end of the swing arm, and as long as you get the same distance between those two on the left side as the same on the right side, that means that you found the place, and by, you know, kind of touching the chain and ensuring that the chain has the tension you want, that means that you got to the place you wanted. But the difference on the example that I gave you before, where you had a bolt that, you know, it's kind of threaded on the inside of the swing arm, is the fact that you're going to be making your adjustment here by then just moving it. If I were to move it this way, I'm going to be undoing the bolt, and then the end result is going to be that I'm going to be pushing out the wheel. In this case, that's not going to work because this is only moving as an entire unit, and it doesn't have threads on the inside to use it as leverage to push the wheel out. So what's going to happen is, once you find that place, let's say that this is where I want my wheel to stay, and that equals the same distance that I have from this block to the end of the swing arm. On the other side as well, I'm going to use this bolt right here. So I'm going to be moving the bolt to where I want it. Like, for example, this is loose right now. So let's say that this is the position. This is just an example. Let's just say that this is the position where I want it. What I'm going to do is just to push this out. And now that's making contact, I'm going to be bringing this nut close to here, or whenever it's touching the swing arm on the inside, and then I'm going to bring the other one to touch that one, so that the distance that I have here, that I intended for to be the perfect place for the tension that I want on my chain, is going to stay. And once I fix this to the inside of the swing arm, this is not going to move, and then we're going to be tightening the axle, which is going to keep everything in place. And whenever you do that, you're done. But remember, the main difference is this one. If you have threads on the inside, like for example my FZ-09, you're going to be using this to push out or to help you to bring the bolt in, so that you can move the wheel back and forth. But in this case, where this bolt is not tightened to anything, and what's helping you to keep the distance of where you want your wheel position at is actually the length of this in here. You're going to determine what that length is. For example, if I determine, like, okay, cool, this is how much distance I need so that it's the same on both sides, I'm going to be, fixing this by moving this nut in here, and that will limit the movement of my axle back and forth, as long as I have it on the same side on both sides, and then you're ready to tighten the rear axle. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so right now I'm taking some measurements. I'm going to the block, to the end of the block, and I got here 5/8 of an inch between here and here. So I'm trying to understand if I have the same on the other side, and I do, and my chain is still loose, but it's better than before. So nothing like explaining with, showing people, what you're doing. So I got to the place where I have the same measurements. I have 5/8 on those sides from the end of this plate to this end. So this is what I want to do. I want to lock in place this. So how do I lock that in place? I'm going to be holding the bolt, which I'm going to do with the wrenches at some point, but I'm going to be holding for now, and I'm going to be moving this nut right here, which is stop moving. 13 just to keep this one in place, so I don't lose my position. And I'm going to start moving this one so it get close to the other one. Easier said than done. Okay, so now I have them close together. As you can tell, this is still kind of floppy, so I'm gonna get rid of that right now. Let me position this in here. Okay, by doing a couple things. So just this one, I'm gonna tighten and get as close as possible. I'm talking to the farthest to the right. I'm going to be moving that one a little bit more. And when I feel like, it's touching and I don't have the same floppiness anymore, which I still do. Okay. Let's go and tighten that one. Okay. I still have some, way to go. So it's not really changing my adjustment. It's just changing there you go. It's just hard to get to it because I have the other one so close. So let me back this one up a little bit, and then you try to move that one individually. Okay. So as you can tell, I don't have the same floppiness that I had, before. So I can barely move the bolt now. So I'm going to hold it. Okay, grab it in place, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of a twist here, so it's like super close. Okay, This is not gonna go anywhere. Anyway, so now I'm good there. I'm going to repeat the process on the other side. Okay. Going to push forward to ensure that both adjusters are on the same place based on the measurements that I just took. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten this until I know that this is no longer being able to move back and forth, and I'm not losing any of my adjustment. Okay, so I know now it's not moving anymore. I still have the desired tension on the chain. So now what I'm going to do is, for the last time, just ensure that this is, super tight, that it's, completely tight to the walls of the swing arm on the inside. Like, I mean, this one and this one, lock it in place on both sides. And now at that point, I can go ahead and torque the rear axle, and I can go ahead and finally just, put the bike on the floor and kind of take it for a spin and check how it feels. Okay, let's just tighten this, and it says 50 to 60 Newton meters. So let's just tighten this with the 19. And now we're going to double check, and how we started versus where are we right now. And you can tell that, there's better slack, and it's not that heavy as before. So now we feel, pretty comfortable, and now I can, pull the same way I was pulling before, so which is great. So now let's just drop this bike and see, how it feels. All right, so this is the bike right now with the chain adjusted. As you can tell, chain is not sloppy like it was before, so we have the right adjustment. I ended up finding a caliper, so I was able to actually measure this like super precise, and I have the amount of millimeters that I wanted within specs, between this left side and the right side. So I feel pretty comfortable about the bike and the tire being, straight the same way it was before. I don't know why this was so difficult for me, because I've done so many, adjustments in the past. If you're new to this channel, this is bike number 50 something for me. So I've done many adjustments on every bike that's been, chain driven. But this one is particularly it was just the bolts are not good quality. The threads were a little bit dirty, so it was kind of hard for me to move the nuts and stuff. So anyhow, I'm just gonna maybe change them in the future, just do something a little bit more, better, and just to kind of keep them clean as well. So I'll just take it for a rip and see how it feels.